have reservations, hesitations, or are a bit skeptical about freeze drying, good on you, because you should be. It is natural to question new methods you're considering trying in your kitchen, especially when it comes to something as important as food preservation. So in this video, I need you to hang on tight because I'm showing you up close through 7 different meals featuring both raw and cooked foods, the results you'll get from freeze-dried foods, and how to get the fastest return on your purchase. If this is our first time meeting, hi, I'm Cassandra from the blog BecomingAFarmGirl.com. I'm here to help you start building a preservation pantry and start cooking from scratch so that you can learn how to feed your family well, even on a budget. So if you're looking for recipes, free meal ideas, or creative ways to cook with what's in season, on sale, or already on your shelf, I can help you with that. For nearly a decade, my tiny townhouse kitchen has been able to punch above her weight class in terms of sticking to a food budget that is significantly below families of our size, which includes a robust pantry stockpile of real food ingredients like homemade soups, sauces, meats, and other meals, because when you preserve and store your own food, you're less vulnerable to inflation, supply chain disruptions, or economic downturns that may impact grocery store prices or availability. So first, you've got to understand that food as a commodity has very volatile prices, and that's because grocery stores rely on commercial transit, which is tied to the demand of constant forces like the price of energy, equipment, what the weather's doing, the cost of labor, you know, those kind of things. And it's because of all that I strategically show why I am so intentional about meal planning around seasonal foods, because those are always going to be the lowest priced items in the grocery store. And then I'm also very intentional about taking advantage of markdown items and preserving them because, well, the general population ain't doing that. And no club, no membership, or store coupon can consistently help you eat better for less when you do that. So take, for example, the other day when I went to the grocery store just to poke around the reduced for quick sale meat section. These are meats that have been marked down, but they hadn't expired yet. But they were approaching their for sale by date. And that's just because within, the cases that a store has, they're trying to make room for the new shipment of inventory that's arrived. Honey, these meats are regularly marked down to 30, 40, and regularly 50% off all cuts of meat. And since freeze drying means that I no longer have to be worried about running out of freezer space, I regularly stock up on my meats this way. Look, it is actually good sense to purchase quantities of foods when they're on sale or have been marked down. Because not only are you saving money when you go to purchase the foods that you're going to freeze dry, but in the next 5, 10, heck, next month, it will be that much more valuable.
The Harvest Right freeze dryer comes with a varying number of trays depending on the size of the unit you get. We have the medium one, which comes with 4 stainless steel trays that measure 7.5 inches by 18 inches, which is more than sufficient for a family of 4 or more. While they're super easy to clean, I like adding parchment paper liners so that all I have to do is wipe them down after use. The Harvest Right manual actually recommends doing this for sticky foods, and you can also use silicone mats. All right, it's time to get the meats that I had purchased at an amazing price. The scrapple, sliced chicken breast tenders, and ground turkey that I found are going to take less than 3 minutes to place on trays and pop them into the freeze dryer. Now, I was drawn to the fact that Harvest Right freeze dryers work with raw and cooked meats, so in this video, I'll show the results of both. Preparation for your meat includes cutting the meat into uniform pieces or thin slices to ensure even freeze drying. And you'll also want to remove as much fat as possible, as fat does not freeze dry well and can go rancid over time.
I've got to jump in here real quick and let you know that I am a born and raised Maryland girl. And scrapple is a near and dear breakfast recipe for those of us in the Maryland, Pennsylvania, Dutch area. Now, my husband's from Texas and he doesn't get it either, but that's how it usually goes. Anyways, my folks are now in Florida, and my mom, who is also a Maryland girl, cannot find scrapple anywhere down there. And so I just knew that getting her some to freeze dry would be perfect.
So I sliced the scrapple into sizes that are our regular portion, and then I placed the ground turkey meat on the tray, being sure to spread it out as an even layer. Whatever you freeze dry, you want to make sure that it doesn't poke above the rim of the trays. Here's what my trays ended up looking like. One tray held 2 full packages of scrapple with room for more. And then the 2 other trays held several pounds of chicken tenders. And then I used the other 2 trays to hold several pounds of ground turkey. Y'all, that's it.
The freeze drying process is incredibly easy. You'll be prompted on what actions to take on a digital screen with large print. And the steps won't advance until you hit start or next. So this is actually a good time to prepare your food for freeze drying. So it should only be one layer and the food should be under the rim of the tray. Now, am I telling you that based on personal experience? No, doll, it's because the owner's manual gives you that level of hand-holding. The screens that will appear on your freeze dryer are right here. And see, it's not a whole lot of words or buttons. I mean, there's one button on the screen. Now, I always like to know how the owner's manual actually reads because some of them are intimidating or just not well written. So let me go ahead and read the steps of 4 through 6. So for example, it says to place trays in the shelving unit, close the acrylic door and turn the latch clockwise as far as it will go, compressing the door against the rubber gasket. Visually check to make sure that the door is sealed properly to the gasket. If the door is not latched tight, there may be a vacuum leak. Press continue. The unit will begin freezing the material in the freeze dryer. From here, everything is automatic. Unless you get an error screen during the freeze drying process, it is safe to assume that the freeze dryer is working properly and operating as normal. When the food or material being frozen is cold enough, the following screen will appear. Your vacuum pump will automatically turn on. Like, that's how it reads, right? It's everyday language. It is not technical. It's showing you the screens that you're going to get. Now, there are certain, like depending on what you're freezing, if you're freezing like, desserts or dairy, the process is a bit different, but it's not complicated at all. Now, because I'm coming from the world of canning, I wanted to know how long does it take? Because in canning, you have certain like pressure canning times, and so you always kind of know what your time boundaries are. But when you're freeze drying, the freeze dryer will let you know how long that process will take because it depends on the combination of foods you put into it in the first place. And that's because in real time, it is calculating the density, moisture content, the quantity, whether the food was raw or cooked, that kind of thing. So it's better to think in terms of food categories like cooked meals, raw meats, sweets, and those times could range from 15 to 30 hours.
What comes out of your freeze dryer closely resembles what you put in, but it will be feather light. Here are the chicken breasts. It's incredible how portable this is. I'm just showing you how I can now hold what was pounds of chicken strips with just 2 fingers. Fully freeze-dried food should be completely dry and brittle, which you can test by breaking a larger piece of food in half. The inside should be dry and not have any signs of moisture or gumminess. Now let's move to the ground turkey. Yep, it looks exactly like what we put in, except now it's ultra thin and light. Now what's cool is that I can portion this off to be exactly what I need just by breaking it into different sizes. And doing this is another way to confirm that you've got excellent end results. Now I always pack food when we have card trips or are away from home, and no longer needing refrigeration or the weight of canning jars is going to be a game changer. Now let's go ahead and look at our Scrapple, which freeze dried beautifully, right? I can't wait to mail this to my mama. Because freeze drying operates at low temperatures, it helps preserve heat-sensitive vitamins such as vitamin C and B vitamins and a host of minerals. Freeze drying also helps to retain phytochemicals, which are the compounds found in plants that contribute to their color, flavor, and other health benefits that are sensitive to heat and oxidation. Scrapple is very high in B vitamins and iron, and later I'll show you how this and everything else cooked up to see if it meets your level of satisfaction. Harvest Right provides oxygen absorbers, which are placed in moisture-proof bags, which maintains the freshness of your food's texture, color, and flavor, because without the presence of oxygen, you eliminate the growth of aerobic bacteria, mold, and insects. You can use their Mylar bags that come with writable space to mark the contents. These bags are heavyweight and give you a 25-year shelf life. I'll also show you some other storing options in a bit, which include canning jars or resealable containers. Now, after you label the contents, you'll just fill the bag with food and add your oxygen absorber. And then, when using a Mylar bag, take an inexpensive impulse sealer like a hair flat iron. This is one I got from the thrift store because I don't straighten my hair and it works perfectly. See, anyone has time to do this because it's so hands-off. In my case, I'm really enjoying that alongside the more time-intensive methods that I like to use, like canning and dehydrating. Freeze drying is the simplest approach that gives me the longest shelf life. And yes, these are bags that I tucked in a care package for my folks. Canning jars are perfect for short and long-term storage if stored out of light and in a cool, dark place like a pantry or a basin. Now, since I have plenty of canning jars and will be rotating through my supply within the next 1 to 3 years, a good portion of my inventory will be stored in jars. I like using a brake bleeder because it's simple and it stores easily. To create your airtight seal, place the canning lid on top of the jar, then place the sealer on the top of that and connect the brake bleeder hose to the sealer and pump until you reach 20 to 25 psi to create a vacuum. This method effectively removes the air and prevents oxidation and spoilage the same as the electric pumps. It just uses a bit of elbow grease.
Now, very seriously, when it comes to freeze drying, the decision you have to make is this. Are you someone that wants to own the means of production? Now, for us, the answer had already been yes, because I was regularly canning and dehydrating to create our own shelf-stable convenience foods. And the thing is that owning the means of production reduces your reliance on the supply chain and reduces waste. You can better manage your household's food consumption by controlling the portion sizes. You have a means to prevent food from spoiling, and you can ensure that only fresh, healthy ingredients are used. You won't need the added preservatives, sugar, the excess salt that is found in the commercial convenience foods. And then you also avoid the astronomical markup on the healthy foods that don't include the junk.
A cooked meal that I wanted to freeze dry included a cheesy chicken vegetable pasta stovetop meal that I made, and I wanted to take for a family meal while we were out of town for a couple of days. So I simply took the extra portion that I cooked and I smoothed it around on a single layer on the first baking tray. And then I took some leftover beef lasagna that I had made earlier in the week and I added those slices to the other trays. So these are just 2 examples of homemade meals that are easy for me to make and especially batch cook. But if I no longer needed to worry about freezer space, and if these meals rehydrated and tasted just as good as what you see here, that would make meal planning and stocking even that much more efficient. Let's place these in the freeze dryer. And when they come out, this is what my cheesy chicken vegetable pasta looked like. The color and shape are still very much like what went in, but with the moisture removed, it's incredibly lightweight. Now, I just showed you a carrot, and this is a piece of chicken. It's seasoned. I mean, the color looks, again, like what I put in. And then this is a piece of pasta. Again, it retains its shape and I can still see the seasonings. And this is a piece of broccoli. And whoa, look at the lasagna. Now, if I put this on a plate, you might not realize that it's freeze dried. It has retained excellent color. It still has its layers and there's this textured look. Whoa. For short-term storage, a few days to a week, you can keep your food in a plastic bag that is sealed tightly to prevent moisture from getting in. We'd be eating this just 3 days later, so I didn't want to waste a Mylar bag. Let's rehydrate the cheesy chicken pasta. To fully rehydrate meals, just place the contents into a bowl. Then you'll slowly add hot or warm water to your meal and stir every minute or 2 to fully saturate the contents until it reaches the desired consistency. You can create a steam effect by placing a lid over top or placing your food in the microwave or a stovetop to further warm it up. Let's do the same with the lasagna. We'll place it on a plate and slowly pour hot water over the top, and you can immediately see how fast things start to rehydrate. But again, I'll place a lid over the top to create that steaming effect. It's been 5 minutes, and I'd say that if you didn't know this was freeze-dried, you assume I just took this off the stove. Let's inspect a piece of chicken. Wow, do you see how juicy and how easily that meat pulled apart? That's a 5 out of 5 in my book. Here's another piece. Again, it is super moist and tender. Now let's move on to the broccoli. It has great shape, and look at those individual plump florets. This broccoli is both firm and fork tender with good chew, not soggy and not firm or tough. And here's a carrot. It's fully plumped, and as you can see, it has really good texture. I also wanted to show you how well the broth came back. Firstly, it's a beautiful color, right? It's smooth and clear and had all the taste of the seasonings that I originally put in. All right, here's the lasagna. I did drain off some of the water, but as I cut the lasagna, you can see my knife has good give or resistance, and the sauce isn't thin. It still has a lot of body. I mean, really take a close look at how the lasagna hangs on the fork. The noodles are tender and they hang loosely. The meat sauce still sticks to the lasagna and the fork, and the color is great. The mouthfeel was satisfying and imparted that melty, cheesy taste. I mean, look and tell me your thoughts. Doesn't this look like it just came out of the oven? And look at how that sauce hangs on the fork. Now let's rehydrate everything else we've cooked up. We'll start with the scrapple. I'll rehydrate 2 slices by slowly pouring hot water over the top, and almost immediately it starts to rehydrate. So here's what it looks like about 2 minutes later, nearly the same as it did when I sliced it out of the package. The texture is soft and firm. I added slightly more water than I needed to, but let's see how it does. I'm placing the sliced scrapple into a hot cast iron skillet, and the way I cook mine is with crusty edges and until the scrapple gets a dark brown skin that develops. For scrapple lovers, I'm so sorry. I fumbled the ball turning over this first slice, but hey, this is a real kitchen and it happens from time to time. But I am happy to report that I got it right the second time. Ah, yes, perfection. I think this is a guinea egg from my friend's farm, which is why you see a bit of dirt on it. But I love pairing my scrapple with a runny over easy egg. Now, for those of y'all that get it, I can't tell you how much I love seeing, smelling, and hearing scrapple and fried eggs in a cast iron pan on any morning. Let's plate up breakfast, and goodness, look at how crispy the exterior is. The shape is well retained. I just didn't think I had enough oil on that other slice. But here's my over easy egg and the other slice of scrapple. Yep, y'all, this plate came out exactly as it would have if I would have cooked it right out of the package. Let me slice it up and I will show you the inside. That came out perfect too. Now all that's left to do is to place the egg over the scrapple to soak up some of the yolk and enjoy the best country breakfast there is. Like I said, it's a Maryland, Pennsylvania thing. Now to the ground turkey. I again poured hot water over the top and I let things sit for about 5 minutes, and then after that I just drained the water off. Now remember, this is still raw meat and freeze drying does not cook your meat. So what I noticed is that I still saw the grooves in the meat, but the meat was very, very tender. I added this to a warm skillet, and while it fully rehydrated, it maintained its compact structure because raw ground meat retains its shape more rigidly after rehydration, so it doesn't crumble, but I assure you the taste, tenderness, and the texture are spot on. I paired this turkey meat to a jar of home canned vegetable soup, and dinner was done. Now let's do the chicken tenders. Same process, you let the meat rehydrate in water, but this time it took closer to 10 minutes because the meat is a bit thicker. But after it's rehydrated, you can tell that it has really good texture and buoyancy, just like it did before I even placed it in the freeze dryer. With freeze-dried meat, you never have to worry about forgetting to thaw out your meat. So yeah, I just placed my chicken in a warm cast iron skillet, seasoned it up, and I cooked it as usual. It browned up nicely and fully plumped back up. I served the chicken tenders with some sauteed spinach from the garden, and I was just too tickled that my chicken breast came out as moist and chewy as the meat in my regular freezers could have cooked up. The results that you'll get from your Harvest Right freeze dryer aren't just impressive, they're downright tasty.
And so a freeze dryer can be a prudent investment when considering. As food prices rise, buying in bulk or clearance stocking like I do to preserve it through freeze drying lets you stock up during sales or favorable pricing periods. And that safeguards your budget in the moment, like this week as you're shopping and you're finding something that is, on sale or marked down like I showed you, and also in the long term as food prices continue to rise. You can also create ready-made meals that only require water, which simplifies meal prep and makes life easier during hectic periods. And you can tailor freeze-dried foods to cater to special diets or food allergies, which is often just not possible with commercial products. And even more pragmatically, you can diversify both your short and long-term food storage with a range of options with just one device. So you are adding fresh fruits and vegetables and cooked meals, and that is a pantry that you from day one already know how to use. Plus, freeze drying retains up to 97% of the food's original nutritional content, making it one of the best preservation methods for long-term health. So check out the link in the description box below, or the QR code on the screen that will appear so that you can explore more information on the Harvest Right website and take advantage of applying a promotional code that will take $500 or more off of your purchase. To get more inspiration to stock your pantry and plate with foods that are in season, on sale, or already on your shelf, click the video on your screen. I'll see you in my kitchen or garden soon. Take care, friends.